My dad agreed to sell me to his loan shark in exchange to clear his debt. My aunt told me she would help me escape until I heard the phone call. She was having the day before the scheduled wedding. The day I turned 17, my father told me I had exactly 1 month to marry his loan shark, Olaf Snackaloff, or he'd let him collect the debt another way. Dad had always been a gambler, but I always thought he had it under control. Apparently not, because he owed Olaf $300,000, and the interest was compounding daily. Olaf's willing to forgive everything if you marry him, Dad said. He's been very patient with us. The name instantly rang a bell. I had met Olaf once before when I was 14. He came to our house for what Dad called a business dinner. Extremely muscular, yellow teeth from smoking, very Russian. And whenever he thought I wasn't looking, I felt his eyes drag across my entire body. He asked about my high school plans and whether I was dating anyone. Dad laughed nervously and changed the subject. So now, 3 years later, everything finally made sense. The marriage contract had already been drawn up. I would have to live with Olaf, produce his offspring within 2 years. While my dad was speaking, I thought about what I could say to the police for help. That's when he burst into laughter. I can already tell what you're thinking. Olaf has connections everywhere. Don't even think about alerting the authorities, or you'll just make this harder for yourself. The scariest part wasn't even his anger. It was how calm he was while planning to sell me. He then took my phone and smashed it against the wall before heading to bed. When 3 a.m. hit, I tried to run, but the car wouldn't start. The nearest civilization was 8 miles away. But when you're 17 with no phone and no one coming to save you, 8 miles feels like 80. The next morning, I woke up to find Dad had installed locks on my door from the outside. Just a precaution, he said, sipping his coffee like he hadn't just turned my bedroom into a cell. I only had one visitor, and that was Olaf. At first, he would act somewhat bearable, constantly referred to me as his future wife, only touched me on the shoulder or hand. But the more uncomfortable I looked, the more he kept pushing, and soon his hand was glued to my inner thigh whenever we sat together, his fingers pressing harder as he talked about how many kids we'd have. Sometimes I'd glance over to my dad, but his expression was always the same, always nodding in approval, always with a slight smile on his face. But the worst was yet to come. My dad and Olaf were sitting at the kitchen table when my dad went to the bathroom. Olaf tried to call me over, but I pretended to be too focused on cooking to hear him. But when his voice turned threatening, I sighed and walked towards him. Hey, he whispered, the stench of whiskey and cigarettes rotting my nostrils. The second he pulled me onto his lap, my dad walked in. How are my two lovebirds? My dad exclaimed, before walking over to the oven and checking on the Alfredo. Olaf whispered again, does a pretty thing like you like it from behind? That was my breaking point. I immediately ran to my room and cried my eyes out. No one came to check on me, until 10 minutes later, when I heard the front door slam and my dad finally walked in. Dad, I can't do this. You should be ashamed of yourself, he interrupted. Olaf is doing us a huge favor and you're throwing it out the window. I stared at him in disbelief. Dad, please don't do this. I'll work 3 jobs. I won't sleep. I'll eat 1 meal a day. Whatever it takes to pay off the debt, just not marriage. No, my word is final, was all he said, before slamming the door and locking it from the outside. From there, I stopped eating, sleeping, showering. It all felt pointless. My head was consumed with desire for my dad to have a heart attack and drop dead. The thoughts made me feel guilty. Then I'd feel anger for feeling guilty. It was a lot. And with 3 weeks left to go until the forced wedding, Aunt Rachel showed up. She was Dad's younger sister who'd moved away years ago after some family drama I never understood. Later that night, she cornered me in the kitchen. I know what's happening, she whispered. I've been where you are. My dad tried to sell me off too when I was your age. My heart nearly stopped. Someone finally understood. Aunt Rachel said she'd been monitoring the situation through cousins and couldn't stand by anymore. She had a plan to get me out. I was terrified of being caught, but more terrified of what would happen if I never tried. Aunt Rachel was everything I needed. She'd sneak me food when Dad started monitoring my meals, and she'd create distractions so I could have a few minutes alone to breathe. The night before we were supposed to execute our escape plan, I couldn't sleep. So I crept downstairs to get some water and heard Aunt Rachel on the phone in the guest room. Yes, Olaf, she completely trusts me. She'll get in the car willingly tomorrow. I pressed my ear against the door and she continued. Dad promised me my cut of the trust fund, right? 50,000 like we agreed? My legs nearly gave out. The glass slipped from my hand, but I caught it before it could shatter. Aunt Rachel had been working with them the entire time. The rescue was a trap. The hope was a lie. And tomorrow, instead of freedom, I'd be delivered directly to Olaf. I was truly alone. I backed away from the door, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The cold surface sent shivers up my legs, matching the chill that had settled in my chest. My hands shook so bad I had to set the glass down on the hallway table, watching the water ripple from my trembling. The antique table, one of Mom's favorite pieces, seemed to mock me with its stability. Think. I had to think. I crept back upstairs, my mind racing through possibilities and dead ends. Each step on the old staircase threatened to creak, but I'd learned over the years which spots to avoid. Aunt Rachel was still talking on the phone, her voice carrying through the thin walls with false warmth, making plans for tomorrow's fake escape. I could hear her pacing, the guest room floorboards groaning under her weight. I locked my bedroom door from the inside, the small click feeling both futile and necessary, not that it mattered with the outside locks. The metal was cold under my fingers, a reminder of my prison. Then I sat on my bed, the familiar quilt Mom had made offering no comfort, and tried to process what I'd just learned. The trust fund, of course. Mom's life insurance had been substantial, but Dad always said it was tied up in legal stuff, bureaucratic red tape that would take years to untangle. Now I knew why. He'd been using it as bait, dangling my inheritance like a carrot to the highest bidder. I grabbed the burner phone Aunt Rachel had given me, its cheap plastic case feeling flimsy in my hands. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very tool of my supposed salvation now revealed as another link in my chains. I scrolled through her texts, looking for anything suspicious. Most were to me, playing the role of concerned aunt perfectly. How are you holding up, sweetie? And, remember, I'm here for you, filled the screen. But there was one number she'd texted repeatedly. The messages were deleted, but the number was still in the recent contacts, a digital breadcrumb she'd forgotten to sweep away. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close, the sound echoing down the hallway, then dialed the number from my room. My heart pounded as it rang once, twice, before a familiar voice answered. Rachel is late. This better be important. The accent was thick, impatient. Olaf. My stomach dropped. I hung up immediately, my finger fumbling with the end button. My stomach churned, acid rising in my throat. How long had they been planning this? Was anything Aunt Rachel told me true? The story about her own arranged marriage, her tearful confession about understanding my pain, was that real, or just another manipulation designed to make me trust her? I spent the rest of the night planning, sleep an impossibility. The moon cast shadows through my barred window, creating patterns on the floor that looked like prison stripes. If Aunt Rachel thought I trusted her, I'd use that. I'd play along with the escape plan, let her think I was the naive girl she believed me to be, but I needed evidence first. Something concrete that could help me later, something that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. The next morning came too soon. Aunt Rachel knocked on my door door early, the sound sharp and businesslike. Dad unlocked it from the outside, the multiple locks clicking open in sequence, and she came in with breakfast and a warm smile that now made my skin crawl. She'd done her makeup carefully, looking every inch the caring relative. "Big day today," she said, setting the tray on my desk with practiced ease. The smell of eggs and toast turned my stomach. "You nervous?" I forced myself to nod, to look grateful, channeling every school play I'd ever been in. "Thank you for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." She hugged me, her perfume cloying and sweet, and it took everything I had not to pull away. Her arms felt like snakes coiling around me. "Family looks out for family. Now eat up. You'll need your strength." After she left, I picked at the eggs and toast, each bite like sawdust in my mouth. I needed to get into her room, check her phone for evidence, but how? Dad would be watching, and Aunt Rachel rarely left her phone unattended. The opportunity came after lunch. Aunt Rachel was in the shower, the water running loud enough to mask any noise I might make, and Dad was on the phone with someone, probably Olaf, discussing logistics. His voice carried from his study, talking about routes and timing. I slipped into the guest room and found her phone on the nightstand, plugged into its charger, no password, careless. Or maybe she was just that confident in her control over me. I went straight to her photos and started taking pictures with my burner phone, my hands shaking as I tried to capture everything quickly. Text exchanges with Olaf discussing my value and condition. Bank transfers from Dad, multiple payments adding up to more than I'd imagined. A photo of the trust fund paperwork with amounts circled in red ink. $50,000 was indeed her cut, but there was more. Apparently she owed money too. Gambling debts, just like Dad, to people with Russian names I couldn't pronounce. The apple didn't fall far from the tree in this family. Screenshot after screenshot building my case. "Find what you're looking for?" I spun around, my heart stopping. Aunt Rachel stood in the doorway, wrapped in a towel, water still dripping from her hair onto the hardwood floor. Her face was calm, almost amused. I was just, save it. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her with deliberate slowness. "You heard me on the phone last night, didn't you?" There was no point lying. I nodded, lifting my chin in defiance. She sighed and sat on the bed, adjusting her towel with casual indifference. "You don't understand the full situation. Your father and I were not bad people. We're just desperate. The people we owe, they don't accept payment plans or excuses. And Olaf, he's not as terrible as you think. He'll take care of you. He's 43 years old," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "And he wants to use me as a breeding machine. He told Dad he wants at least 4 children. Many women have married older men and been happy," she said, like we were discussing the weather instead of my life. "You'll have a nice house, money, security, servants to help with the children. That's more than most people get. I'll have prison," I corrected. "A golden cage is still a cage, and those children would be raised in that same cage." Her face hardened, the mask of caring aunt finally slipping completely. "Well, it doesn't matter what you think. Tomorrow you're going to get in that car with me. We're going to drive to Olaf's estate instead of the bus station. You can go willingly, or we can do this the hard way." "What's the hard way?" She smiled, and it was cruel, showing teeth like a predator. "Olaf has a doctor friend who can prescribe some very helpful medications. You'd be surprised how compliant people become with the right pharmaceuticals. A little something in your morning orange juice, and you'll be signing marriage certificates with a smile." My blood ran cold. They'd substance me if necessary, turn me into a puppet. "Now," she continued, standing and walking toward me, "give me that burner phone. Game's over." I handed it over, but she didn't know I'd already sent the photos to another number. Uncle Brian's old email that I remembered from birthday cards when I was younger. He was Dad's older brother, a paralegal who lived 2 states away. We hadn't talked in years, but I hoped he still checked that email. I typed a desperate message. "Uncle Brian, Dad is selling me to pay gambling debts. Please help. Evidence attached." "Good girl," Aunt Rachel said, her condescension thick. "Now go to your room. We leave at 9 tomorrow morning. And don't try anything stupid tonight. Olaf has men watching the house." That night, dinner was tense. The dining room felt smaller with Olaf there, his presence filling the space like a toxic cloud. He had joined us, sitting next to me, his hand on my knee under the table. His fingers were thick, possessive, squeezing periodically to remind me of his claim. Dad and Aunt Rachel chatted about old times like nothing was wrong, sharing stories about their childhood, like they weren't planning to traffic me tomorrow. "You're quiet tonight, little bird," Olaf said, squeezing my knee hard enough to bruise. His breath smelled of wine and cigars. "Excited about tomorrow?" "She knows," Aunt Rachel said casually, cutting her steak with precise movements. "Heard me on the phone." Dad's fork clattered to his plate, the sound sharp in the sudden silence. "What? It's fine," she assured him, waving her knife dismissively. "We discussed it. She understands the situation now. Don't you, Arya?" Olaf's grip on my knee tightened painfully. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. "This changes things. Maybe we should move timeline up. Do ceremony tonight." "No," Aunt Rachel said firmly. "Stick to the plan. Too many arrangements have been made. She's not going anywhere tonight." She looked at me with those cold eyes. "Are you?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice to remain steady. After dinner, they added more locks to my door. I heard them drilling until past midnight, the sound of my cage being reinforced. Metal on wood, sealing my fate. No more bathroom breaks without supervision. No more pretending. The very walls seemed to close in around me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling where I'd once stuck glow-in-the-dark stars with Mom. Most had fallen off over the years, leaving just a few dim spots of light. Tomorrow they'd take me to Olaf's estate. The wedding would happen whether I agreed or not. Unless Uncle Brian got my message. Unless he believed me. Unless he cared enough to help. Too many unlesses. Too many variables outside my control. Morning came too fast. Dawn breaking gray and oppressive. Aunt Rachel unlocked my door at 8. Already dressed and ready in a navy blazer that made her look professional. Trustworthy. "Shower and put this on," she said, handing me a dress and a garment bag. "Olaf wants you looking nice for the drive." I did as told, moving mechanically through the motions. The shower was lukewarm, the water pressure weak. The dress was white, knee-length, with delicate lace at the collar, something a bride might wear to a rehearsal dinner. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was being dressed for my own funeral. Downstairs, Dad was pacing the kitchen, his footsteps creating a nervous rhythm. "Maybe we should just do it here," he was saying to Olaf. "Judge Morrison owes me a favor. Why risk the drive?" "Because I want this done properly," Olaf replied, his voice brooking no argument. "At my home, with my people as witnesses. Official, legal, binding. The girl knows the plan," Dad argued, running his hand through his thinning hair. "What if she tries something? Then we handle it," Olaf said simply, checking his phone. "I have men posted along the route. She won't get far if she runs, and if she tries to signal for help." He let the threat hang in the air. My stomach dropped. Even if I managed to escape the car, they'd catch me. This wasn't just 3 people anymore. It was an operation. Aunt Rachel appeared with coffee and toast, playing hostess. "Eat something. Long drive ahead. You don't want to get car sick." I forced down a few bites, my throat tight. The toast was dry, scratching my throat. Through the kitchen window, I could see Aunt Rachel's rental car in the driveway, a silver sedan. Such an ordinary vehicle for such an evil purpose. No one would suspect anything wrong. "Time to go," Olaf announced at 9 sharp, checking his watch. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging digging in hard enough to bruise, adding to the marks from last night. You ride with Rachel. I follow behind. Any problems, any attempts to run or signal for help, and things get very unpleasant. Understand? I nodded, feeling the weight of his threat. Say it, he demanded, shaking me slightly. I understand. Good girl. He released my arm and kissed my forehead. His lips were wet, leaving a mark I wanted to scrub off. I fought not to vomit. The walk to the car felt like a funeral march. Each step took me further from any hope of rescue. Dad stood on the porch, watching. No goodbye, no apology, no sign of the father who used to push me on the swings. Just that same satisfied smile, already counting his money. Aunt Rachel started the engine while I buckled my seatbelt, the click sounding like a prison door. Olaf's black SUV pulled out behind us as we left the driveway, staying close. I watched my house disappear in the side mirror, the place where Mom had read me bedtime stories, wondering if I'd ever see it again. It's a 2-hour drive, Aunt Rachel said, turning onto the main road. Her hands were steady on the wheel, experienced. We can listen to music if you want, make this pleasant. I said nothing, just watched the familiar streets of my neighborhood pass by, the park where Mom used to take me, now empty in the morning light, the library where I'd spent countless afternoons, escaping into other worlds, the life I was leaving behind, possibly forever. We'd been driving for 20 minutes when Aunt Rachel's phone rang. She answered on Bluetooth, the car's speakers crackling to life. Brian, she said, sounding genuinely surprised. How did you? Yes, she's with me. What? No, that's ridiculous. I'm taking her shopping for her wedding. What email? My heart raced. Uncle Brian had gotten my message. He'd actually checked that old email address. Photos? I don't know what you're talking about. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, her composure cracking. Brian, you're being paranoid. Dad's debts are his business. I'm just here to support my niece during a difficult time. She listened for a moment, then her face went pale. You called who? Brian, you shouldn't have done that. You don't understand the situation. These people don't play games. She hung up and immediately called Olaf. We have a problem. Brian knows. He's called someone. I don't know who. Maybe police, maybe FBI. I could hear Olaf swearing in Russian through the speaker, a string of words that needed no translation. How does he know? Aunt Rachel's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, fury burning in them. The little brat sent him photos, evidence, screenshots of everything. Where are you now? Route 47, just past the water tower. Pull over at the gas station ahead. We transfer her to my vehicle. Now. Aunt Rachel accelerated, her jaw tight. The speedometer climbed past the limit. You stupid girl. You've just made this so much worse for yourself. You think Olaf was bad before? You haven't seen anything yet. I saw the gas station approaching, its bright signs promising normalcy. My mind raced. Once I was in Olaf's car, my chances dropped to zero. I needed to act now. As Aunt Rachel slowed to turn into the gas station, I unbuckled my seatbelt, the click loud in the tense silence. Don't even think about it, she warned, reaching for me, but I was already moving. The second she stopped, I threw open the door and ran. The asphalt was rough under my dress shoes, but I didn't care. I heard her screaming behind me, Olaf's SUV doors slamming, but I didn't look back. I ran toward the gas station store, hoping for witnesses, for help, for anything. My dress tangled around my legs, slowing me down, but Olaf was faster than his bulk suggested. He caught me before I reached the door, his arm wrapping around my waist and lifting me off the ground like I weighed nothing. Stupid girl. He hissed in my ear, his breath hot and sour. Now you make me angry. You will learn respect. He dragged me back toward his SUV while I kicked and screamed, my voice raw. A few people stared from the pumps, but no one intervened. Just another domestic dispute, not their problem. Someone even looked away deliberately. That's when I heard the sirens. Olaf froze, his grip loosening slightly. 2 police cars were approaching fast, lights flashing red and blue. He dropped me and ran for his vehicle, shouting at Aunt Rachel to move, but more police cars appeared from the other direction, boxing them in. There was no escape. I collapsed on the asphalt, my legs shaking too hard to stand. The rough surface scraped my palms. An officer approached me carefully, hands visible, speaking in calm tones. Are you hurt? She asked gently. We got a call about a possible kidnapping in progress. Are you Arya? I started crying then, really crying, as the adrenaline crashed. My father sold me to pay his debts. They were taking me to force me to marry him. The words tumbled out between sobs. The officer helped me to her patrol car while others arrested Olaf and Aunt Rachel. They didn't go quietly. Olaf kept shouting about his lawyers, his connections, how we'd all regret this. Aunt Rachel insisted it was all a misunderstanding, that I was a troubled teen making up stories. At the station, I told them everything. About the gambling debts, the forced engagement, the locks on my door. The detective, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair, listened without judgment. I showed them the photos I'd taken of Aunt Rachel's phone. Uncle Brian had driven through the night and was already there with a lawyer friend, looking haggard but determined. I got your email at midnight, he said, hugging me tight. He smelled like coffee and safety. I'm so sorry. I should have checked on you after your mom died. I knew my brother had problems, but I never imagined he'd go this far. The lawyer, a woman named Sarah Chen, sat with us. She had a calm presence that made me feel protected. The evidence is strong. Conspiracy to commit forced marriage, false imprisonment, attempted trafficking. They're going away for a long time. What about my dad? I asked. There's a warrant out for his arrest. They'll find him. They did. 3 hours later, trying to flee to Canada with a suitcase full of cash. Turns out he'd been skimming from Olaf for months, planning his own escape once I was married off. The betrayal went even deeper than I'd known. The next few days blurred together. Statements, paperwork, court hearings. I learned more about Aunt Rachel's involvement. She hadn't escaped an arranged marriage at all. That was a complete fabrication. She'd lost her inheritance through online gambling, owed money to dangerous people. When she heard about Dad's situation through family gossip, she saw an opportunity. Convince me to trust her, deliver me to Olaf, collect her finder's fee. She'd done this before they discovered. I wasn't her first victim, just her first failure. The trial was swift. Olaf got 15 years for attempted trafficking and conspiracy. Aunt Rachel got 10 years for her role. Dad got 12 years, plus additional time for the financial crimes they uncovered during the investigation. I lived with Uncle Brian during the trial. His wife Patricia was kind but careful around me, like I might break. Their kids, my cousins I'd never met, didn't know what to make of me. I was the girl from the news, the one with the terrible story. You can stay as long as you need, Uncle Brian assured me. Through college, whatever you want, this is your home now. But I had other plans. During the investigation, they discovered something interesting. Mom's life insurance policy had a clause. If Dad committed any crime that resulted in my harm, the money went directly to me. All of it. $300,000 plus interest. I used some of it to finish high school through an accelerated program. The rest went into savings for college. I decided to study social work to help other kids trapped in impossible situations. The day I turned 18, I got a letter from Dad in prison. I didn't open it, just marked it, returned to sender, and moved on with my life. Whatever excuses or manipulations it contained, I didn't need to hear them.